All right, everyone. We're going to kick off tonight, Evenings with Artifacts. It is the first Evenings with Artifacts in our spring 2024 season. So we're thrilled you're joining us tonight. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Heather Nickerson, co-founder and CEO of Artifacts. I'm joined with my co-founder, Ellen Goodwin. And we also have our esteemed guest tonight, Zoe Kim. We're very pleased to welcome Zoe to kick off our spring 2024 Evenings with Artifacts series. For those of you who do not know Zoe, she is a guru on decluttering and simple minimalism for families. She is the author of Minimalism for Families, and she also is the founder of Raising Simple. She is an expert who's sought after for her tips and tricks on how to declutter, downsize, and organize. And she also brings a very human-centric approach to all of this. She'll be tonight discussing and sharing her 7 questions and tips for decluttering, including those sentimental items. Before we get started, please feel free as we go through the presentation to pop your questions into chat or Q&A. We will be monitoring both throughout, and we'll leave plenty of time at the end to address your questions and engage in conversation. So with that, I'd like to welcome Zoe. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and the floor is all yours.
Okay, thank you, Heather, so much for that very warm introduction. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you. So for those of you that don't know me, just a little bit more of an intro. I began living a minimalist lifestyle about 13 years ago when I had 2 kids at the time. And I actually found this way of living and simplifying your home because I wanted to start wasting less in the kitchen, believe it or not. So anyway, after that, I found Bea Johnson online. She's basically the zero waste guru of everywhere. And she showed pictures of her home and how simplified it was. And although my home is not that simplified, I just saw freedom in that. And then I began decluttering. So with that, let me open the chat just so I can see if there's any questions. Heather, would you like me to go ahead and start through the questions?
Yes, please feel free to start through your presentation. And as we get questions, I'll be monitoring chat and I'll let you know so we can dive into those.
Okay. So with decluttering, I think that, at least 50%, probably more, is all about shifting your mindset. Because without that, you're just, I don't know if you guys can hear the train, I'm sorry. Without that, without changing your mindset, you're going to just be kind of shuffling things around and you're going to clear out some, oh, Rhonda Fry, yay. Hi, Rhonda. Thanks for joining in. Okay. So without those mindset shifts, you're going to end up probably recluttering, right? Bringing this stuff back into your home. So there's 7 key questions to help you declutter, even the emotional stuff. So let's go dive into question number 1. Okay, we're going to start with a simple one. Why am I keeping it? I'm going to tell you guys, most people, we're not going to necessarily know the answer to this, but I think it's really important to start asking yourself that question so that you can figure out what thinking and behavior patterns were getting you to the point where you had all this stuff more than you needed. All right, so question number 1, why am I keeping it? When we can answer the why of the keeping the question and accept the truth, we can often see what our heart and mind need to process. Many times it is fear and the scarcity mindset that keeps us holding on. So the scarcity mindset says, I'm going to need this. What if I get rid of it? And there are so many strategies that I wish we had time to dive into tonight, but we don't. But there's so many strategies to shift your thinking from scarcity mindset to abundance. And yes, I can get rid of 4 of my pairs of scissors because I still have 2 more. So, all right, let's go on to question number 2.
Zoe, before we jump in, we do have a question from an email.
Okay.
Everyone says it's about scarcity, but it's not, I promise. It just makes me feel better to know it's there. Any
Ah,
thoughts or comments on that?
yeah. So yeah, I could see that the security of knowing that the item is there. And I would be, I'm wondering, is this sentimental items or are these items that you really feel like you're going to need? Because that would be different. But I could see how that would be comforting. For me, the balance was okay. I know this stuff is there, but now I have so much to take care of that it doesn't. Oh, her mom's estate. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay,
There's a
so
lot
that's
of sentimental value there, I
okay.
bet.
So that's a lot of sentimental. Yeah. So we're going to get to some more questions that can help kind of simplify that down and really, focus on what you might want to keep from your mom's estate. I know that's really tough. I dealt with my grandmother's estate, and that was tough. So um, yeah, so real quick, my I was very close to my grandparents. I grew up with them as a teenager for a few years. And so when they passed away, I was 24, whatnot, 25. We had great trips together, San Diego, all some of her bucket list items. And she, I didn't have a lot at the time, wasn't really making any money, so she would give me all her stuff. So when she passed away, I ended up having a lot of her furniture, um, and so that I just had to over time just work through. But we don't start with the sentimentals. So, okay, let's move on to question number 2. How do I want to live my life? I know this sounds like a really broad question, but I could narrow it down by saying, how do you want to live your life in your home? How do you want to operate and function? I used to ask myself what I wanted to keep until I made the deeper connection that what I own actually determines how I live. And I can't tell you, there's studies that show that when we have a cluttered kitchen, we eat worse. We choose food that is more unhealthy. And so I there are just so many studies and research that show that how your surroundings, what's outside of you, affects what's inside. And it's just a back and forth ripple effect. Okay, question number 3. Here's a sticker for me. Do I want to manage this item forever? I think I really experienced this because my prior husband was in the military, and I moved a lot. And so I was constantly packing and unpacking and managing and touching and cleaning and moving and thinking about my things. So every item in our home is going to need to be managed. That can look like being moved, cleaned, sorted, or stored. But it's not just about physically managing it, it's also emotionally managing it. Oh, typo, and allowing it to take up space in our mental load. Even tucked away in a closet, research shows that clutter weighs on us and increases our stress and cortisol levels. And maybe Heather and Ellen, we could link later to a couple studies that I can share with you guys on the blog post for this. There was a study done with families, and it showed that women in particular, even when their stuff was packed away or hidden in closets, their stress levels when they thought about their stuff were increased, as opposed to their husbands. It was not. If you're a man on here, I promise I'm not trying to put you in the closet there. But okay.
Yeah, we'll definitely link to that, Zoe. I think that's
Okay.
great to be able to share that information.
Yeah.
We do. It's regardless, male or female, if you're the family keeper and you have the
Mhm,
stuff, it can be
mhm.
stressful. It can be a burden. So I think this question is really important when you think about what you just said, the managing piece. Like, what do you have to
Yeah.
do to take care of it?
Yeah. Definitely. Okay. Yes. Question 4. What are my most cherished sentimental items? So again, I want to just circle back and say that when you start out decluttering, you don't start out with the sentimental items. So depending on where you are in your journey of getting your home uncluttered, that that may not be the best place for you to go right now as far as trying to pick your favorites. But when I started, like I let go of my grandmother's coffee table, and I was like, okay, you know what? That wasn't really my style. I still have her ring that I really love. So it did help me to focus on what do I value? What would I want to bring? If my house was on fire, what are the items that I would want to take from my grandmother?
And I think
Um,
here, Zoe,
yeah.
Rhonda just jumped in with the less you have to manage, the more free time you have. And I think you are a
Yes.
living embodiment of that. Like what you tell people and what you teach day in, day out, like you're an inspiration to us for that. Like you help us see that and understand that.
Yes, yes. And I think Rhonda's making a lot of progress too with her decluttering. So I think she's experiencing that as well. It really is so freeing, and you don't realize what you're carrying around until you set it down, right? Because then, just picture yourself carrying a backpack, you put a book in there, okay, it's kind of heavy. You put another book in there, you kind of get used to carrying a heavy load. But when you actually set that stuff down, you realize you're like, wow, that was really heavy. Yeah. So,
That's a great analogy. Thank you, Zoe.
yeah, it's so true. It's just so true. Okay, question number 5. Do I want to leave this as someone else's responsibility? Now, I do want to say this question is not meant to make anybody feel bad or shame anybody. This is just about, having empathy and thought for the people who are going to take care of your things. So, as time went on, I started asking myself what truly adds value to my life in my home, with the forethought that someone I love will be left to take care of it. And as a mother of 4, I never want my kids to feel the burden of my excess. And especially the burden of my excess of things that I don't even use or enjoy, or so, that was a big motivator for me in the beginning. Okay, can a photo and a story be enough? Taking a photo of a sentimental item can be a way to remember the memory but let go of the item. So I put in here, this is a great example to use artifacts. I think that this, just being able to catalog certain items that you don't want to forget and you want to remember and you want to carry on the story is just wonderful. I do have some items from my grandparents. I have a paperboy badge from like 1902. It's a metal star. I do wish, and like I said, I don't have that. I didn't keep that many things, but I just kept things that I felt like were really interesting to me, that I had this space and the mental energy to take care of. And I wish that I knew the story behind those. But I don't, and I keep it anyway. So anyway. All right, but I'm gonna do some of that for my kids so that you know they can they'll know what the item is, and then they can decide. All right, question number 7. What do I need in this season of my life? No matter where we've been or where we're going, when we fixate on the past or the future, it's at the expense of the present. Ask yourself what you really need in this season of your life, because where you're at now is what matters. I think it's so easy to keep living, in the past, which doesn't mean we can't keep sentimental items. It just means, are they weighing you down? Is your stuff making it hard for you to function and enjoy your home? That's what this is about. Because if it is, that's not what you need in this season of your life. You need, peace and clarity and energy and time to do the things that you love and enjoy. Okay. Heather, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. So Zoe, those are fabulous questions. And ones folks, before we all came on tonight, we were chatting with Zoe, online, and I had mentioned that for me, when I first got her book, read it, and then handed it to my partner and said, please take a look at this, especially the highlighted portions, because there are so many incredibly useful tips that when framed in reference with these questions, they really give you a practical approach for how do you tackle some of those items, sentimental, but sometimes also just the stuff you accumulate and what do you do with it. So I do want to jump into a couple of questions. One I
Mhm.
had, Zoe, based on your book and based on the questions tonight, and I think it's something we all probably grapple with at some point. How do you say goodbye to your fantasy self and your someday items? What if you're keeping something, not because of it's got this huge emotional attachment to it, but in some way, you think one day this is going to become you. And I think the example you give in your book is about having photography gear, and you think you're going to become a photographer, but you haven't touched it for maybe a decade in the closet. So what advice do you have for those of us who may hold on to things because we think they're going to become us down the road?
Yes. So, that's a tough one, Heather, because all this stuff, right, requires us to be honest with ourselves. And different things will work for different people. But let's just say you have a bunch of photography gear and you're not using it. You could donate that to a college of underprivileged, students. There are people that could use your things that you're not using rather than keeping them, stored in a drawer. And I think that as you start to just declutter, you build that muscle, right? Decluttering is a muscle. And so the more you do it, the easier it gets. And you get those wins. So you feel the benefit of an uncluttered drawer or, a really nice, a cabinet. You open it, you can find everything that you need. So,
No, that's
yeah.
good advice. And I think it ties right into the next question we just got is what about regret? What if you declutter for this season of your life? And so you're worried that you'll regret it later because what if it didn't fit that moment, but now it fits this moment? How does that, like, how do you mentally, how do you tackle that question if you're being honest with yourself?
Yeah. If that were me, knowing what I know now, I think I would absolutely regret living in clutter and having that weigh me down and take away from my time, which is my most precious resource. I would regret not getting, really clear and simplified in my home.
Mhm.
Um, Someone, say Janet says, I think we need to trust as we are generous and giving. That's nice, Janet. Yeah, that we will have what we need later. There's other strategies too, like if it's $20 or less, you could go to the store and buy that, right? You could borrow it. I mean, we can get so many things now, free cycle, upcycle, is that
Mhm.
yeah. So I yeah. And as you start to declutter, you see that you didn't need that stuff and you didn't miss it. I mean, there's literally been like one item that I was like, oh man, I had to go buy another one. I needed to use that, but I did. And it was like $20 or something. Um, it was like a ventilator adapter thing for my child, you know, but I got another one.
It's like
So
that cost benefit, right? Of like how much does that the managing and the stress of managing it and having to mentally keep track of it, what is
yeah.
that worth versus to your point, if it's an inexpensive item you could buy again and then donate again, like how does
Mhm.
that how does that, I guess, interplay with each other?
Yeah. Well, I think too, like if we just say to ourselves for every single item, say you're just decluttering, you're like, oh, I should keep this just in case. Okay. Maybe in that moment for this one item, just in case isn't so bad, right? You're like, I might need that. But if you're walking around your whole house and you're saying just in case 200 times, 500 times, then that becomes that becomes the problem. And that is when the cost benefit, right, starts to go in the other direction and it's not worth it anymore. Let's see. Okay, Anna says, I have ended up having to buy duplicates because I couldn't find the one I know I do own. So the clutter made me buy another. That rhymes, and I love it. Exactly. That's exactly what happens. I actually am guilty. I've done that before too. So, yeah, it makes it hard to find things. It makes it hard to function. And sometimes I heard this, maybe Courtney Carver at Be More with Less said this once. It was like, when everything is important, nothing is important,
Mhm.
right? Because and because everything can't be important. That's really the truth.
Zoe, that's
Um,
right up there for me with just because you've had it a long time doesn't make it valuable. And I think
yeah.
that gets to the point of the sentimental items and rechecking, why do I actually have this? And I've
Mhm.
experienced this even in my own family, where one of us was keeping something because we thought it was important to the other and it was important to no one, but we hadn't had that conversation. And so it's also kind of one of those checking your assumptions moments to understand who actually wants this thing that we are carting around from state to state. Like, let's have a
Yep.
conversation about that. And I think you speak a lot to that. And one of the questions that I was hoping you could address was how you bring your loved ones into that process, because you might be farther ahead of them. You might have flexed your muscle, as you said, and developed that muscle for decluttering well advanced beyond your family. So can you spend a little bit of time about how you bring them with when they're not on that same journey with you?
Yeah, so how do you get your family on board with living a a decluttered, highly simplified life?
Yes.
Yes, very carefully. No. So my recipe for that is to kill them with kindness. Okay, so that's my one liner right there. But basically, you need to just declutter your stuff. Let them see, let your family see how you're experiencing the joy or the simplicity. You're getting dressed in the morning, you have less laundry, and maybe even just talk to yourself out loud about it so they hear you. You're just like, oh my goodness, like I am so glad I've already put my clothes away. I'm so glad I don't have to think about what I'm going to wear. I'm so glad cooking is more enjoyable now. Because so you want to get them thinking and shifting their mind, their mindset about it. That's the thing. You don't want to come in and dictate and say you need to get rid of your things and you, right? Because we all know nobody likes that. Everyone's going to be like, absolutely not, and they're going to dig their heels into the ground probably for the next decade, and you're not going to make any progress. So for kids, I like to, what I did with my kids, they were 5 and 3 at the time. So that I was lucky in that sense. I would declutter my things. I would go in the kitchen. Let's just say I had 5 wooden spoons and I already knew what I was going to let go of. But I would say to my daughter, like, hey, this is silly. Like, I don't need 5 of these. Which one do you think I should get rid of? And then I would let her choose. And the fun part was she wasn't picking about herself, her own things. She got to help me declutter my things. So that was fun. So then guess what she felt when I said, oh, hey, what do you think if we, and don't start with the most sentimental things, but what do you think if we, simplify this, the blocks or the books or whatnot, we could give them here or you could sell them or, and so she was excited, right? Because there wasn't this negative feeling around it. So lots of positivity, positive conversations. Let them hear you talk about it. Let them hear you say the benefits before you even, start getting onto them about their things.
Mhm. Another question was that muscle analogy is getting folks. So, in exercise, they say minimum 2, 3 times a week. So how do you help people, like, what is your direction in terms of how they approach decluttering when they're not fully in, it's a habit, it's a mindset yet, and they're trying to practice and work that muscle? So what can you walk people through what your advice is when you're kind of feeling overwhelmed and it's intimidating and you have lots of cherished items to get through?
Yes. Yeah, and just to get a little win in, I would say start with the bathroom. I like to say start with the bathroom because it's the smallest room. It's a small, it's a smaller space and it probably has the least amount of sentimental items or paper clutter, which is basically everyone's like pain point, right? And so start with that and go through and declutter all of that and get the space the way that you like it, so that you can at least walk into a room and you can feel that win, and you can start to build your muscle, your decluttering muscle, about what you need and what you don't. And one of the strategies that I love that I recommend is, if you, let's just say you have makeup and beauty products, and you just, you haven't used them, whatnot, or throw the expired ones away. Don't even think about that, please. But what you do to kind of get the benefit of having less without falling into the regret that it's gone is do a test. So pack up everything that you have not used in the last month. Pack it up in a box from your bathroom. Hide it in your closet. It's still there. You didn't get rid of it, but see how you feel. See if you even remember everything that's in there, because I promise you, you're not going to remember everything that's in there. You're going to forget. And that can make you realize, oh, wow, I actually went about my day totally fine, really happy, got ready, had everything I needed right there, and I didn't miss it at all.
That's a great tip, Zoe.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm smiling because I think I may tackle the bathrooms this weekend with my teenage daughter in tow.
Oh, yeah. Well, mine just turned
Let me tell
18.
you, there's a lot of clutter.
Yeah, mine just turned 18 and she has her own job, and we have all these boys in the house, so she does have her own bathroom. And so needless to say, yes, there's a lot of products in there. And I go through there with her and I was like, okay, but like 4 lotions, like, what's your favorite? So we go through it, but she's pretty good. She'll go through that now, because that's the way that she grew up.
That's awesome. I think we're gonna have some homework in my house this weekend. We did
Yeah.
have a question come in from one of our audience members. Matt would like to know, have you seen options where you can take your family and or kids to go help declutter other stuff, like art centers, etc., and help them get the feeling of the before and after and how it
Mm,
feels? Maybe a school. Any suggestions there, or what have you seen, if at all?
yeah. No, I have not. I mean, I think that's a nonprofit model right there, Matt, for you to start up. um, that would be great. I mean, aside from, I don't know any particular organizations that just focus on that, but of course, you can always plug that in to anywhere, any organization that any of the activities that you're involved in. You can always do that. We have an art center down here, so I could go there and I could say, hey, let us help like clean it up and get it organized and declutter, and they would probably absolutely say yes. So that is a great idea, though. Because that also gives you the sense of serving other people, which, you know research shows brings people a lot of joy as well, serving other people.
Zoe, another question for you. You said to focus in one of your steps on which are your most cherished items.
Hmm.
The question is, this relates to something we talked about a little bit earlier. What if they're cherished not to you, but to someone else? What is your strategy for long distance, asking friends, family, before I get rid of this? Do you have like Zoom chats and you declutter with your family? Or what is the process that you recommend people use?
I would say to I'm thinking about where to start. I have a lot to say. I'm thinking about where to start. um, First, I want to say, right, you are not the keeper of things for everybody else. Like, so if you are feeling this burden, like you are supposed to hold all of your family's items because your parent gave them to you, or however you ended up with them, I just want to tell you, I that is not your responsibility. So what I would do is I would reach out to the family member or members and present the items and say, hey, I'm ready to let go of these. Would you like these? If the answer is yes, um, you just make shipping arrangements, or I will ship it to you. You decide what you want to do. by this day. Give them a day. This is not, oh, just, hey, think about it and let me know like next year. No, set a date, because we're all kind of like this. We're not going to do it unless we have a date. They're not going to make a decision because you're storing it for them, and then they're just going to feel like it's there. So, and that can also tell you too, are we willing to spend the amount of work and energy that it takes to ship an item, to pay for it to be shipped, depending on what it is, and go to the store and box it up. Is it worth that? So, but if it is, reach out to them, share what it is, and then set boundaries around the exchange so that there is a deadline.
We had Zoe, another question come in about, could you please repeat the first of your 7 questions?
Sorry, I had to cough. The first of the 7?
Yes.
Yeah, so all 7, or?
I think it just says, could you please repeat the first of the 7 questions? What was the
Okay.
first question?
Okay. What was the first question? Why am I keeping? Okay, number 1, why am I keeping it? So I know this sounds like, a really broad question. So when we can answer the why of the keeping question, we can accept the truth and often see what our heart and mind need to process. Many times it is fear or the scarcity mindset that keeps us holding on, or as another viewer said, it's just the comfort knowing that it's there. But I think it's important to say that when we ask ourselves this and we're starting out decluttering, you may not know the answer, and that's okay, but it's just important to start asking yourself these questions. Why am I keeping it?
Great. Thank you, Zoe. We've got
Mhm.
another question too. What about trying to teach kids/partners about multiple use items to consolidate 2 or 3 things into one, like a bottle opener/wine opener together versus one of each? Basically like the camping/hiking style where you are weight limited and need to be creative so everything has more than one use.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely did that in my kitchen. So, yeah, I mean, you could show them examples of this. I actually do that with my daughter with makeup.
Mhm.
Um, I buy clean makeup, but I have my brow powder. Could also, 2 shades of brow powder. It literally is my eyeshadow, and when I wet the brush, it's also eyeliner as well. And so it's just those little things. So I think, yeah, that's a great idea, Matt. Matt, you have great ideas. It's Matt again. um, but yeah, like a bottle opener, a wine opener together. Yeah, just teaching them. And I think what the key to that, right, is doing it with them, right? Because then they see how you do it. So that's a great
I
idea.
really like the comment from Jill. When I cleaned my art supplies, I donated several to the art group in town, easier to give away extras. One of the things that we talk a lot about here at Artifacts is when you're talking about, like we are tonight, sentimental items, even
Mhm.
paints, frankly, we come across people who are working through estates and they don't want to let go of items, even like the paints that a family member used, the artist.
Mhm.
Last year, we published a Going Green with Artifacts guide. I'll pop the link here in chat here. And we're doing another one next week is Earth Day. So we focus on how to recycle, upcycle items that you might have actually artifacted because they had some sort of sentimental value. So
Mhm.
our guide isn't about necessarily paints, which could be sentimental, but we try and focus on other items. So I popped that into chat for folks, but we will have another one next week because I think that it does, for some people, it helps them let go when there's another better use coming for it, as you mentioned, right? Like I can always get another item to replace it if I'm ready to let go of the sentimental piece.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And if it's going to someone else and then they can use it. Um, but I just love the whole idea too of, artifacting it, because kids artwork, you could artifact that and, not have to keep it. Yes.
Guilty
And then
as
you,
charged.
yes. Uh-oh. I called you out, Heather. Um, yeah.
So
No,
Zoe,
it's,
another question. So what
yeah.
if you get yourself on board, you go through your 7 questions, you're feeling really good. You even get your family on board by giving a lot of praise, a lot of positive reinforcement. What happens around like when people come to visit or the holidays and you get a lot of gifts? How do you control the clutter coming into your house if you're not the one bringing it in? Any tips or
Yes.
tricks to navigate that?
Yes. So if you are having family that's giving you gifts, I think being proactive is essential. So just sharing with them, hey, I'm really trying to simplify my home so I can just spend more time with the kids and not feel overwhelmed. Hopefully your family hears that, right? Um, so if I could just give you a list, because I know you want to get, the kids, let's just say grandkids, a gift. If I could just give you a list of things that they really could use, which also could be experiences, a gift certificate to go bowling, an art class, like it doesn't even have to be stuff. So I think, yeah, being proactive and communicating those things. And then the other part that I run into this a lot, right, with so many kids is that they go to birthday parties. And I don't know what year we all started saying that, I'm going to call you guys out, that we had to give gifts to the
No, it's
people.
ridiculous. It's an epidemic. You go and you have to give gifts to the participants.
Why are we giving goodie bags of junk? They're not even goodie. They're not good. We're for those, I don't know if everyone on here is familiar with that, but if you have kids, if I, my child and I had the ideas, I throw them a birthday party and then I go and I stress myself out and I buy a bunch of random things and put them in a little goodie bag for all the people that came so that they could feel good that they came to the party and like they got something. And so, there's so many levels of that going on. But okay, so back to the strategy. So for that, I talk to my kids about parties and gifts before it happens. I don't wait until the moment when they have something really cute and cool, some kind of squishy little thing, to have a conversation about that they need to get rid of it or throw it away or blah, blah, blah. So we talk about things ahead of time. Some things I say, hey, that this isn't gonna like last forever. A lot of the stuff breaks. I just let them know that what it's gonna come to an end. Its life is gonna end, and we're gonna throw it in the trash. Um, and they're pretty good about that. But also, my kids are really good about if they get a gift and they don't really see themselves using it because I keep asking them these questions. And so that's why they're aware because I just keep making them aware like, hey, do you think you're really going to use it? Like, is there something else better? I'll say that to them if they get a gift from their friend for their birthday and it's not something that I'm like they're not going to use this, they don't even know, they're going to open it and they're going to be disappointed, they don't understand how it works or something. And so I'll get them to like exchange it or return it and pick something out that they like and let them know that's okay, right? It's the thought that counts, I think.
I think this really struck a chord, Zoe, with some of our viewers tonight. Denise
Yeah.
says this always made no sense to me regarding the party favors and the gifts for going to an occasion or a celebration. And then Anna noted that favorite gifts in our family include a lift ticket for a day of skiing. Anna, I love that. And also
Yes,
buying replacement sports equipment. It would get bought anyway, but this is a way that it's a gift. And then we've got
exactly.
a couple more questions that popped up. Rhonda wanted to know, could you please touch on the fact that money is already spent, so there's not a good reason to keep something that you are not using, and how to let go easier?
I love that. Was that Rhonda?
Yes, that's from Rhonda. Mhm.
Yeah, Rhonda, great question. So I always like to ask people, how much longer do you want to keep paying for your stuff? Because you're paying for it. It is costing you your time and your energy and how you're functioning in your home. So yes, you have already spent the money. It's done. And letting the item sit there and go unused, that's wasting. You know, I think in our brain we say, oh, I paid really good money for this, and I can't waste it, so I'm going to keep it. But the truth is that we're not even using it. So actually that's the waste. Like, it's not even being used. So yeah, I just go back to the money's already been spent, or the time was already spent to acquire it. Don't let it cost you anything. Like, your life is so much more valuable than holding on to something because you are good, just determined to use it even though you don't need it.
Denise says, let's stop paying interest on what we bought, right? I love that, Denise.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. And it's compounding, right? This is compounding interest, Denise.
We've got a question from Jeanette, Zoe. She'd like to know, after the bathroom, what is the second room in the house to go through?
Mm. So, that is tricky because people are different, right? Some people have problems with their clothes and other people don't really care about their clothes. I would probably say the kitchen. Yeah, I'd probably say the kitchen personally. Um, as
Okay,
far
I'm
as
gonna
rooms.
admit, I am a weak spot on the kitchen because
Oh, see?
no, so it's not the sentimental. I'm actually good on the
No,
sentimental in the kitchen because I'll use it as decorative objects, right? So
it's
my
your fantasy self, isn't it, Ellen? It's your
it's
fantasy self.
I mean, I am never going to be a Pinterest mom. Let's just give that up now. But but it's like we throw a Christmas Eve party, open house, and everyone comes, and that's when I use something once. And it's for that one day of the year. And
Yeah,
so even though we have incredibly limited storage, I think about it all the time. I think of
yeah,
you and the advice you'd probably give me. I'm like, but I do use it on Christmas Eve. I know I stare at it and think,
yeah.
I could use that for more things. I don't know. Anyway.
Well, I have some serving, serving trays or platters that I only use, on occasion, maybe a party or Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's just, how many do you need, and trying to get by with less. But I, yeah, I would probably say the kitchen. Another area, if this is even a room in your house, it could be a mud room, like an entryway. I think that's always nice to get decluttered. Kind of creating a drop zone. That's what I call it. It's a drop zone for yourself. So where are you going to put your keys, your bag, your coat, your purse, that kind of stuff. Um, Simplifying that can be really good.
Kat sees that, just one comment from Kat, she wanted to share, is that going back to the money spent on the items, it's a sunk cost, but a lesson was learned in spending that money so it wasn't wasted. We have seen that time and again in our family, Kat. So yes, yes.
Yeah. And moving away from the guilt, though, because that's how you can, feel the benefit, like learn the lesson. Like, don't feel guilty anymore. Just get rid of it. Someone asked me in another event, how do you, or she said she felt angry, decluttering all the time, like just angry with herself or frustrated that she was where she's at, which I think we can all kind of attest to that in some area of our life, right? Um, but I think getting that mindset of, I'm not going to let this stuff cost me anymore. And really, and I should have mentioned this in the beginning, just really kind of focusing on your why. You know, what is your why? Why do you want to, have a uncluttered, decluttered home? What do you want to do more of in your life? Oh, okay. Denise says, I was declutter resentful for years, but now it's not the boss of me. That's awesome. Yeah. I'm so glad that resonated with you. Yeah, because that's a real thing. Just feeling really frustrated and that's an emotion that can keep coming up too. Because as you're going through each room, you're just having to sort through it and go through it, and you're just like, oh, and this, and then oh, and this, and it feels like it doesn't end.
Jill's got a great comment in here. I spent 3 months with my mother in an Airbnb and was so surprised what we didn't need, and I'm working to declutter home now.
That's great. So are you working to declutter because you spent that time with your mom in the Airbnb? Like, did that give you a renewed, approach? That's awesome. Regardless, one thing I want to say, like I mentioned earlier, my ex-husband was in the Air Force, so we moved a lot. We lived fortunate to live in Hawaii twice. I cry every day I'm not there. And we lived in a fourplex, so we were like on the end. But I had already done so much simplifying that when people came over, because all of our units basically were the same model, right? So it was really interesting and kind of fun to go to each other's homes and see how people worked with the same space, right? The same layout, the same space. And people would come into mine and they would say, like, wow, it looks like you bought your furniture for this place. But it's just because I just had like key essential pieces and nothing super like bulky and no extra 20 side tables, you know? But yeah, that was really helpful.
Love that.
Yeah.
Zoe, one question that just popped up. Any tips to simplify even more for those who have difficulty with executive function? And we actually, I want to chime in and second that. Now, there are a lot of reasons why you can have that difficulty with executive function. For some folks, it can be related to dementia too. So I wondered if we can handle both of those at once.
Okay. Well, I cannot speak to dementia.
Okay. We'll take that one off the table, but can you speak
Yeah.
to difficulty with executive function? Have you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I would say set a timer. I think when I think of it, yes, ADHD. I
ADHD?
think of, yeah, not being able to focus. I'll tell you all, depression runs in my family. I have depression. I have trouble focusing. I get sidetracked. I mean, just listen to me when I talk. I'm like, oh, this and this and this, right? I have a lot of ideas. So I think setting a timer and saying, okay, I'm setting a timer for 5 minutes and I'm only going to work on this. I'm going to work on this space and just do that and complete that space and then do it again and repeat. Another thing that might help you, listening to music while you do it, that can help just draw your focus away from chitter chatter in your mind. That works for me sometimes. Ellen, did you have anything to add to that?
Well, on the decluttering for dementia side, one of the things that has come up a lot for us at Artifacts when we work with folks, and we're about to start a brain health research study this spring on this, which is the only reason why we tiptoe into this. We are not doctors, but we're starting to work with doctors on this. With the difficulty with executive functioning, it becomes part of a guided process. So not relying on them to have those steps, but being the guide, and that's okay too, right? It just requires a different flow from them following the steps to you taking them through, and that works as well. You just have to be cognizant of where they are with their stages of dementia and how quickly they might forget what has been decluttered. And that does call to what you said earlier, Zoe. It was in the bathroom context, but in other contexts too, putting items away aside versus actually getting rid of them. In case there is that moment of where did it go? Because there can be issues with paranoia and concern that come up with people who have dementia. So it's just a different area of concern and something to talk with a doctor or an expert about.
Yeah, and another comment, she said, staying in one zone is a challenge. I get going and all kinds of piles in many spaces and it's messy. Yeah. And that's really difficult too, because when you start decluttering anyway, even if you feel like you can stay in one space, it's really messy because you just start pulling out everything and it's like a bomb went off in your house. But I would say, is there anybody that could come over and work on a project, like an area with you. I know a lot of people don't like to invite people over to their homes because we're all embarrassed, but I think we need this. Like, we need community, right? I don't think that we're meant to do all of this necessarily by ourselves. And I think that we need community. So if you can reach out to any of your friends and just tell them what you're trying to do and ask them if they want to come over, and then maybe you go over and you do something that they want to do with them, it's a trade-off.
And I think, Zoe, you've really seen that in one of your most recent projects and collaborations. Haven't you started a essentially decluttering community?
Yeah, almost, almost. I'm about to. Yeah, yeah. That was when we did that. We did a 6-hour decluttering class with Dawn from the Minimal Mom, who's amazing and so nice. And what we did in that class was body doubling. So that's where people could turn their cameras on in Zoom and they see each other working and they're encouraging each other. And I'm just telling you, it's just amazing. There's a couple people in here that are in that group. It's amazing how much more progress you make and how you don't feel like you're alone. And I think that that's such a big thing, right? We just feel alone in it. And having somebody come over and do it with you would just help so much. Oh, I have the same problem. Yeah. My alter ego, my tomorrow self, is my accountability buddy.
I guess it's very different than my fantasy self, right?
Yeah. No, no. Yeah, your tomorrow self. Like, you're going to wake up, you're going to do it tomorrow. Yeah, you're going to do it tomorrow. I mean, not to sound, weird, funny, but yeah, sometimes I literally just say, okay, Zoe, don't think about everything you're going to say to yourself. Just pretend like you're someone else. Not that I want to be someone else. I just know that I can do it. And I need to stop listening to my voice tell me that I can't. And I'm just like, well, they're not. They're doing it. Okay, so I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna do it. I'm not gonna think about it anymore.
So you're getting a ton of praise for that class and the body doubling. And I think creating that accountability as we declutter, as we go through those 7 questions, if you don't
Mhm.
have the ability to do a Zoom and body double, like bring in your family, like you said, like make it a group activity and not just the onus doesn't
Yeah,
have to fall on you. If you're the family keeper, you also don't have to be the family chief declutterer. Let others get involved and let others help you. And when I say you, all of you be
yeah,
accountable together.
yeah.
Yeah. On that note, we are going to wrap. We're approaching the top of the hour. We want to say a big thank you for Zoe for joining us tonight. I'm going to pop into chat the link to Zoe's website. She has a fabulous blog, which is a great resource. It also has the link to her book. And then, of course, all the other items she is working on, the tips and the tricks. Well, also tomorrow, this will be posted on our YouTube channel and shared in our email. And of course, feel free to download, rewatch. Zoe will also have some downloadables with that content we'll push out tomorrow. So if
Mhm.
you rapid fire took notes on all the questions, we'll have the ability to go back and rewatch or download and interact with as you begin your decluttering or maybe make more progress on your decluttering process. And of course, please feel free to follow Zoe Kim at Raising Simple and also
Yep.
us at Artifacts across all the various social media channels. And Zoe, feel free to chime in with any
Oh no,
other.
I was gonna say, I'm mostly on Instagram, but for all of you that are chiming in, if you go on my Instagram, I'm working on more like showing you some dirty, cluttered, dirty areas. It's like, I built this minimalist modern farmhouse and I barely have the furniture. So it just naturally just looks like clean and just too perfect. But I promise you it's not. My walls are dirty from the kids touching them. And right now their cubbies are just packed full of stuff that they've been hoarding for the last 3 months. And so we're going to declutter that probably this weekend. But thank you guys so much for coming on here and participating in this conversation. It's been really good. I hope that you found it helpful. And if this is your first time meeting Heather and Ellen, they are wonderful, wonderful people. So I'm glad that you have met them here.
Thank you so much, Zoe. And for those of you who will be joining us next week for our second episode of Spring 2024 Evenings with Artifacts, we're going to be tackling photos and legacy. We'll be joined by the CEO of the Photo Managers, Kathy Nelson, and also the founder of Past Present Pics, Marcy Brennan. So stay tuned for another exciting conversation, this time dealing with photos and all the stuff that is involved with memories, legacies, and stories. So thank you so much, everyone, tonight. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you next week. And thank you, Zoe.
Yes, thank you guys.
Thank you. Good night.